Hey there, welcome to episode 102 of the FFS Talk audio program. My name is Dan Hugo. I'm your host, as always. This is an episode titled 2. What on earth could that mean? Well, if you're new to the FFS Talk audio program, you may not know this. The goal of this program is to have discussions, conversations, debates, and so on about things that work and do not work and what we might do about them around particular topics or issues. Usually it's a monologue at this point. They're audio essays. I prefer to think of it as seeding the ground for future discussions. So 102 episodes in, there are plenty of opportunities to engage if you so desire. If you're not familiar with FFS, it is an abbreviation for a common Irish expression. I'm sure others say it as well. If you're not familiar with that expression, I suggest you hang out with more Irish people. Hopefully, wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a summary, a brief summary, which I'll read to you. It's two reasonably short sentences. And the links for today's episode, there are two of the usual self-promotion links and one Wikipedia and one YouTube link. Yeah, there you go, for today's episode. So let's get to it so we can get on with it. On this Thursday. Completely forgot to say the time, and we're recording this at 9:51 a.m. Pacific Standard Time in the Greater Vegas area on Thursday, November 6, 2025. Now we can begin. The summary of today's episode: the paradox of choice, an embarrassment of riches, how to decide, do we even want to? Too many, and we might not want to. None, and we might rebel. So we settle on ... Hence the title. It's not always two, but often it is two. The links for today's episode: FFS Talk Home. That's the homepage for this audio program. FFS, just like it's spelled, just like it sounds. FFS Talk, T-A-L-K. It looks like ffstock.com. Still, the to-do list does still include beautifying the websites and adding all of the episodes to my primary points of publication. That is websites that I own and control, where you can find all of the episodes. We presently publish everything through Spotify. That will be a good secondary, but the primary should be owned by us. We've talked about this in previous episodes of different my various audio programs. The Posse notion: publish on your own site or server and syndicate elsewhere or everywhere. POSSE. So we're moving in that direction. At the same time, there's a profile page linking everything. This has been around for a few years now. buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo, DANHUGO. It's a freeform profile page that's always around, so I don't have to worry about maintaining that link collection. Well, I maintain the links, but the site itself, somebody else deals with keeping it up and running. You are under no obligation to spend any money there, but you will find, you can buy me a coffee if you want. You'll find affiliate links for various products that I actually use. You'll find links to all of my audio programs, to projects. There's some biographical information at the very top of the page. And we do publish Buy Me an Update every Monday morning. It gets published initially to buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo/posts, hence the name. And then later in the morning usually, it will be published in all the usual places. All those links are on buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo to start. So you can start there if you need to, or go to ffstalk.com or quaglingsand.com, etc., etc. For today's episode, The Paradox of Choice. It's a Wikipedia page. It's also a book. When we have too many things to select from, it's harder to make a decision than if we only have, say, two. We'll get into that briefly. It's an interesting problem. It's sometimes more of a problem, sometimes less, but it is something to think about. And one of my favorite TED Talks, if you're not familiar with TED Talks, it's a person standing on a stage for about 20 minutes, making a presentation about something hopefully interesting. Production by Street. In this case, it's pasta sauce choice. That's actually not the full title of the YouTube video is, there we go, Choice, Happiness, and Spaghetti Sauce by Malcolm Gladwell. I want to say that this was the first time I encountered Malcolm Gladwell, was in this video. It was published on YouTube 18 years ago. And you will almost immediately notice that is an older video. And the TED presentation is actually not even close to as polished as they are today. So just from a historical perspective, it's interesting to watch. But it is an interesting analysis of what happens when you provide more choices. Now, this doesn't mean that the total number of choices available always has to be 2, because that's not always the case at all. But what it does come down to is when you or me, when we are making our decisions about things, it usually comes down to 2 or maybe 3. Now, sometimes we are only provided 2 choices. So the pasta sauce choice video, definitely worth a watch, just in general, whether you're interested in the choice aspect or just seeing Malcolm Gladwell from some 18 years ago, if you're a fan, or even if you're not. So now let's get on with the show. I'll apologize now for my voice, which is reacting in a troubling way to the weather change here in Vegas. We're going through autumnal transitions, I suppose you could say. It's totally impacting my sinuses and my allergies. We'll make it work. If I had a choice, I would. Anyway, the full range. Obviously, 2 is a number that comes to mind when we think about political parties, especially this week. But let us leave that one because there are so many other possibilities and we don't have to talk about politics. I will refer to politics a couple of times, political parties especially. But an example, there are many. For example, there is a really good chance you have an iPhone or an Android device of some kind in your pocket or nearby, and a near zero chance that you have a mobile device that is not one of those. 2. You have 2 choices. There are other choices, but they are exceedingly rare. The Linux phone, hopefully that will make a proper place on the scene. And what about the BlackBerry? I think that's recent enough so that some may remember. The BlackBerry. Why are there only really 2 though? I'll tell you right now, ecosystem, as our mobile devices have grown to become pocket computers, you got to have software to run on them. You got to have apps, got to have accessories, got to have sufficiently advancing or evolving products. So you got to have market, you got to have market share, stuff that works with your device, and loyal fans, right? So can there be more than 2? Maybe, but there certainly has to be 2, antitrust and whatnot. But that's really what it comes down to. There really needs to be 2. There could be 3, there could be 4, but there needs to be 2, and the market will support 2 the best. So there are 2. They're a glass rectangle. When you think about it, they're pretty much the same. Am I making a political analogy? Maybe. Your computer might be running a Microsoft Windows operating system or an Apple Macintosh operating system, Mac OS. But I think they're renaming that, aren't they? Who knows? But wait, you may also be using some flavor of Linux or even BSD. I know I use Linux on all of my stuff, if I can. Certainly my computer, my laptop. The first 2, Windows and Mac OS, make up like 90 or 95% of the consumer computing market, maybe even more than that. But Linux, especially of the other possibilities of the third parties, Linux especially actually has an ecosystem that has been growing slowly, very slowly sometimes, but slowly but surely, for decades. And it powers a lot of the internet you have come to depend on behind the scenes most of the time. So for our computers, it's 3-ish. You can try out Linux anytime you want, so that makes it an interesting proposition. You don't have to commit. Unlike, if you're going to buy a new phone and you decide I'm going to go with an iPhone instead of an Android or vice versa, you're kind of committing to a different ecosystem. You can run Linux on your computer next to your other operating system. So it's an interesting possibility. It's not always as possible to try and flip-flop. Sometimes you can run all 3 or even more operating systems on one computer. It's an amazing world. Now look around, ponder your day-to-day. How often do you find yourself facing a selection between many choices? Wander into a Baskin-Robbins. I think those still exist, right? Or the freezer aisle of your local grocery store in search of ice cream. There are more than 2 kinds of vanilla, which is kind of funny, but actually you can read about different types of vanilla ice cream. Even they're different. They're good for different things, which is kind of strange, but true, I guess. Much less brands. There are certainly more than 2 brands. There's many more than 2 brands and all sorts of variables to consider. Unless you need to pick from 31 completely different flavors, that's a different story. And did you want it in a cup or a cone, or did you want a waffle or sugar cone, or was that for here to go? It's always choice, 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 choice. So much work to do. Boy, we could just be told what to do. So what works? What works in this environment? The nice thing about having choices, we get to exercise our free will. That should be pretty high on your list. We do not feel limited in our options. We can select what we want and know that we were not forced in any particular direction within the realm of marketplace possibilities. There cannot be infinite choices. The economics of that are tricky. But as far as we can detect, we have a choice, and we can make that choice, and we can feel good about that choice often, sometimes. If you are making products, especially ice cream, but just about anything, you may expand your customer reach, maybe your total addressable market, by providing more choice in general to get the attention of more market segments or more people in those different segments, etc. This was the sauce story, so you should watch that TED Talk. Why did Prego, I think it was Prego, I didn't watch the video just now, I've watched it recently, but not today. I believe it was Prego introduced many different types of sauces instead of the one thin sauce that would run to the bottom of the bowl of pasta. So they tried thick and chunky or different herbs and spices. So they were reaching more customers. That doesn't mean everybody had to make every choice, but they could certainly have more than one. We all have favorites. We may have more than two, but at any given time, we may need to pick one when there are more choices. We may consider reevaluating our go-to favorites, which may ultimately make for more enjoyment, even if we do have two favorites and then two different favorites later, and so on, like pasta sauce, perhaps. I will tell you right now, the reason I mentioned the vanilla ice cream, Tillamook makes some pretty decent ice cream for the retail marketplace. We're just normal people after all. They make 3 different kinds of vanilla. So some people will complain that the old-fashioned vanilla is not so good, but it turns out the old-fashioned vanilla is for milkshakes. There's the vanilla bean and the French vanilla, and you can read an entire article about it if you seek it out on the Tillamook website. The reason for the 3 flavors. So sometimes having that choice has an actual motivation behind it, and the ability to select which kind of vanilla you want for your particular application. Well, today I want to pick between French vanilla and old-fashioned vanilla. Next time I may need to choose between French vanilla and vanilla bean. I think that's the other one, vanilla bean. Either way, these seem fine. Don't even get started on sauces. Sauces are a whole complex thing. Watch that video. It's really good. We may have more than 2 options, sometimes many more, but we usually need to get that down to 1 or 2 and then make the final selection. Entire industries are built around this workflow model thinking process, like sports and the entire bracketing scheme, through the entire season, and then to the eventual playoffs and all that, the bracketing and whittling it down, leading to some final game or series. You can talk to the Dodgers about that this year, recently. Or how about the movies in movie theaters, where you can usually take in one opening night show, especially if they're really crowded, or when there was crowded nights of opening night movies, when there may be 2 or 3 or maybe even 5 if the wind blows right for the movie studios. So if you have an opportunity to see one opening night movie because it's crowded, work with me. It might happen again. You got to pick one. And then maybe you'll catch the next one next week, or who knows. Food courts, or now they're usually called food halls for whatever reason, provide many options so that a multi-person party can each whittle down their own options. You don't have to select from one menu at one place when you can select from many menus from many places, and everybody can find something they like, even if each of them whittles it down to 2. They may even choose 2, maybe even 3 of the places available. Everybody wins. Car brands have been segmenting their markets for decades, and the list goes on, maybe even more than 2 items on the list. Yes, it's true. Many. With more and more data available on the producer side, it is possible to tune the offerings so that there is sufficient choice to bring happiness and satisfaction to customers without wasting material and, of course, money. More pasta sauce scenarios. So again, you should watch that video. I don't get anything for you watching that video. I just think it's pretty interesting. Where we can get more attention, gain more customers, and grow our business if we use our data to provide the range of choices people actually want. Not what they say they want. That's a different thing. It's data that you can use, but it ultimately comes down to what people are actually selecting. These could be different. If you watch that TED Talk and you get to the end with the coffee, you'll see what I mean. You'll see what Malcolm meant anyway. Thanks to the huge reviewer marketplace, people who have an opinion about a particular thing, be it food or drink, venue, movie, book, phone, or any of an infinitely many possibilities of things. Don't even get started on how they pair or connect with each other across multiple selections. They can express those opinions with star ratings or similar, sometimes categorize star ratings, cost, taste, weight, size, color, flavor, whatever the facets of the thing might be, with anecdotal explanations, sometimes head-to-head comparisons. Did you like this better than that? Between maybe two similar items. And there are countless podcasters and YouTube and TikTok creators who can deep dive on their favorite anything, whatever it is. Favorite pizza place, favorite pool. Here in Vegas, you have pool days in the summer. Anything, could be anything. With or without compensation disclosure. That's a thing. Which can be useful until we get into some priority inversion where it might not be. So what does not appear to work in this whole scenario? Again, political parties. We are leaving those for another time. Suffice to say, it can work, but in the US, it is not made to work to have more than two functional choices at the polls. Now, sort of famously, now in the news, the New York mayoral race did have three primary choices. Not primaries as in the election process, but three selections for mayor. There was the Democratic Socialist candidate, or kind of Democrat. There was the independent who lost the Democratic primary, and there was a Republican. So technically three parties, but that is a very, very unusual to have three viable candidates when the U.S. system really prefers two. Yes, there are third parties, so it's not out of the realm, but like so many other scenarios, all of the infrastructure, the math, the spending are geared towards taking on one opponent, like getting down to a final series in a sporting event, which is where politics are today anyway. Like it or not, you are going to have to choose from two most of the time, with any other choice called a misstep, a wasted vote, a wasted purchase, etc. Your team didn't make the playoffs or the series. Do you support a team you did not like to defeat a team you like even less? Maybe. Sometimes this is actually consequential, though. Sports, well, some people treat sports teams as more consequential than anything else. Opportunity cost is real. What happens if you have a limited number of options and you must choose between two or three options? Do you have enough information to make an informed choice that would be the best for you? And there may be 31 ice cream flavors to choose from. Do you choose the two or three and then you get, well, maybe I'll get a 2-scoop cone. Should I go for 3? But you still had to leave like 28 other options off the table. So do you have enough information? It is not uncommon to manipulate messaging, reviews, and other influence or influencers to sway your opinion and your eventual selection. So you have to be careful where your influence is coming from, what your inputs are to your process. Sometimes an alternate choice becomes available in the monoproduct scenario, where the alternate becomes an analog of the original choice anyway. Think Twitter and now Blue Sky. When everybody ran away from Twitter, luckily there's Blue Sky. Arguably as divisive and polarizing in some corners of each platform. So you've really just jumped from one frying pan into another, or into the fire. These form a sports team-like adversarial environment between them and within them even, making your choice, even if your choice includes both, something of a statement that may be interpreted as a form of tribalism. What a headache that is. And it is kind of like sports teams as well. Don't wear your team jersey to the wrong place at the wrong time. It's an us-them scenario. This could go without saying, but I will hint that this sort of tribalism is making headlines today, as it has for time immemorial on other fronts, far more consequential. Your choice may make you an actual adversary of those who make a different or the other choice. And you're thinking geopolitical, perhaps? You could be. The world is a crazy place, and how you look at it and what you say about it matters more to some than others. What to do about it? Well, that is the traditional focus of the episode, is what do we actually do with all this? Well, if you want choice, or if the choices available to you are not to your liking, or if there are too many choices that are not worthwhile, perhaps. In this modern age of data, you must vote with your wallet, your voice, and your actions, some combination. Let me fix a little typo here. This may mean purchasing your favorites and eschewing choices that are not agreeable and make that obvious. And this is obvious, but perhaps there is no choice to your liking. You need to say so. The absence of purchase is not informing those enabling your selections, or not enabling them, as the case may be. The absence of voting is not informing a candidate or party. Similarly, although they do spend a lot of resources on survey and population analysis, so they do get something from non-voting. And crossing over to another product or brand is not always sufficient communication. Again, politics is the exception here. They look at everything. But you have to make sure that your choices and the reasoning behind your choices are known, however you can communicate that. Sometimes it's as simple as buying or not buying. Sometimes it's as simple as purchasing another product, an alternate choice. But make your selections and the reasoning behind them known right to the manufacturer. It's been done. Anybody who grew up in a grade school environment where they encourage this sort of thing, maybe the homework assignment is to write to a company and ask them for something. And like 95% of the time, you'll get some response with coupons or promotional, whatever. They listen a little bit. Be informed. Oh, I'm sorry, be heard. The marketplace is larger than any producer of anything. Act like it. That was the end of that final point there, or the first point. People often forget the power of the population. There's in America, there's 300 plus million people buying things. You should be able to craft a marketplace and not leave it to a few. You'll get what we give you and like it. So be informed. Making low information choices may actually damage the system, so to speak. If you go with what you know or think you know without re-examining your choices from time to time, the available choices change, and what you are actually seeking with your selections can too. Doing your own research, so to speak, need not be a daily undertaking, but certainly from time to time it is important, sometimes more, sometimes less important, to look at what is out there and see if your current choices are economical, efficient, healthy, and so on. Obviously, this too, extensive voting, know what you're voting for and possible ramifications, but the same is true as if you're still buying Oleo for your Wonder Bread in the morning. There may be some reading to do about what is available to you and some possibly better choices. You're not eating Oleo on Wonder Bread, are you? Jeez, hope not. Finally, those reviews and influencers are sometimes compensated or with some agenda. They may be reviewing ice cream or a political candidate, so who knows? They're not always human, especially as we advance into the future. You'll be getting more and more AI slop. Even if a person directs the AI to do a voiceover and a generated video or something, who knows what you're really getting? It is critical to be aware of where our information comes from. That's generally true across the board, not just in selecting between products and services. We must choose wisely our advisors for when we are choosing in general, so that we consider the source. When in doubt, ask those around you whom you trust and can interact with in person. The personal testimonial from someone who you know and trust, hopefully, is still among the best ways to get inputs on a decision. It's why the network referrer score, and if you're not familiar, that's the how likely on a scale of 1 to 10 are you to recommend this thing to a friend or family member, etc. Referrals, how about that? Referrals from people you know or to people you know are often considered valid and valuable, because if you know the person, you don't want to lead them astray. So you'll probably give them an honest opinion, statistically. So that's why it's so useful. Like a book club, an investor club, or any collective of individuals who give and receive suggestions thoughtfully, maybe you're in a community of practice even, you may find this is the way to go unless there is another choice. Hopefully you see what I did there. So yeah, this seemed like an appropriate week to talk about this. I think making choices is very tricky. The paradox of choice is an unusual thing. The embarrassment of riches is the kind of the other way of looking at that. There are so many possibilities. What are we supposed to do with all the riches before us? And sometimes you have to choose, and that becomes more and more difficult. Remember when there was just chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry? I think, McDonald's, for example, the chocolate, vanilla, strawberry milkshake. And the word milk is doing a lot of work there. And then they would have the shamrock shake. Oh, that's a fourth. Oh, what do we do? Well, most people are going to go for the unusual thing because the three that are always available, that's not really, you're coming down to two choices. Do I want the thing that I can always get, or do I want the thing that I can only get for a limited time? So occasionally the marketplace and the customers can be manipulated by having a limited number of options and then expanding that temporarily and so on. I'm finding Oreos doing that with their various cookie selections. I believe, and I don't know if this is a prank, I think they're coming out with a Thanksgiving meal selection. The cookies will be flavored like Thanksgiving dinner, traditional Thanksgiving dinner, which is ridiculous. There's the Jones flavored sodas that does that. They've been doing that every year. So they'll have like a cranberry and mashed potato and whatever else flavored beverages, which is crazy. But limited time is an interesting time to take samples. Occasionally, something will do so well that it becomes a regular choice. But generally speaking, the marketplace, again, is so much bigger than the producer side, the supply side, that making your choices known seems like you should be able to steer the selection of choices that you can choose from. And the math does work out. And again, I cannot stress this enough. There's nothing in it for me, but I highly recommend that TED Talk by Malcolm Gladwell. It is actually very interesting. And if nothing else, you can see Malcolm Gladwell from 18 years ago or so. I think maybe 19. The video was posted 18 years ago. Whatever that really means. 18 years and 6 months. Who knows? But the bottom line, having choice is good. Making good choices is better. And eschewing bad influence that will make you make bad choices, definitely something to consider all the time. Be informed, do the reading, do your own research, but also listen to your friends perhaps. And let's go have some ice cream. Take care now. Thanks for listening as always. Don't forget to check out buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo, and you can listen to Buy Me an Update on Monday mornings, wherein we do a quick rundown. It's 5 minutes or less. A quick rundown of the previous week's audio programs across my 4 major audio productions, and then any news and announcements upcoming. You can find that and everything else. buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo, or visit ffstalk.com. Hopefully there'll be more and better, beautiful websites around all the things I'm working on for you to examine. In the meantime, take your pick. Cheers.